Got strings that need to be clipped. Keeps on touching that and getting in the way. That's not a big deal though. First one, Ricky. You won a prize. Thanks, Avery. Okay, so yeah, I was just playing around with something, and I really like the sound of it. It's really easy, and I mean, yeah, you could start doing a lot of different stuff with it. So here's what it was. So I'm kind of playing around G minor, right? So let's just take these two shapes to start with. So here's what we have. So it's kind of like it starts on the bottom string. We have like G to B flat. Then you skip the fifth string, right? And then you're on your fourth string now, and then we have like an F to a G. So we have, and then we're going to skip another string, and we're going to go D, F. If you want to just go by the frets, then we have 3, 6, then you skip, and then we have 3, 5, skip, 3, 6. Now that by itself is kind of like a tricky little picking, a tricky little thing to pick. But what I started doing first is I was just playing a riff with it, and it's really, I really like playing riffs like this. I was just turning it into something really slow and really funky, with a lot of the skanking, you know, hitting all the strings, even though I'm only holding down one. And I started getting a riff like this. Down a little bit. I find that it's really easy to forget that you can make riffs out of just single notes, and you can even really fatten them up and make them really interesting sounding with just kind of the way that you're picking them. You don't normally strum 4 or 5 strings just for the purpose of muting, 3 or 4 of them and only hitting one, but it creates a really cool sound. And I was just kind of doing it around a basic progression. So I'm going from a G into I was just doing power chords there, just like G into a B flat, into a C. And here is where I did a second string skipping pattern. Same sort of thing as the first one, just what this one is like this, kind of starting with like B flat, C, which is also 6/8 on the bottom string. Skip the 5th string, 5/8, and then skip the 3rd string. And now here's where you would normally do something and go 6/8. So that was 6/8, skip 5/8, skip 6/8. Now you don't have to just do that though. That's the one that kind of follows more closely the expected chord progression. But what I started doing instead is I changed one of those notes. I went 6/8, 5/8, and then I went 5/8 again. As opposed to and I mean, they both sound good, and it's I recommend doing them both. But just for what I was doing when I wanted to do this video, I was doing the 5/8 there. And it's kind of like in this is something Nuno does in Porno Graffiti, the song. He does that quick lick that goes, and then right here, instead of doing like you would expect, he just does the exact same thing. He lowers that note by 1 there. And I'm not going to try to play that lick up to speed, but it's if you've heard the song, you know what I'm talking about during the solo. So anyway, that's kind of like a little side note about that. But and I just by doing that same sort of riffing that I did on the first chord, it just sounded really cool. And just string skipping and stuff like that can be really tricky, but it is really good to practice. I mean, it's tricky because it can be difficult, but it's well worth learning. And so if you were just kind of playing around with that as a riff, you could keep it going also. I haven't worked out any other chords that you can make out of those. I mean, they wouldn't be too hard to work out though. Like you could do one that is what that is, that's really doing the exact same thing I was doing up here on the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th frets, but I was spacing it down here. So that would be, you could do like 1/3, skip, 0/3, skip, and then you could either do 0/3 Or you could do 1-3 on the second string, like I was explaining up here, and going instead of. So that would be. Or. If you're doing that though, you're gonna have to be really careful how you pick it, because you can't do this and hit open strings at the same time. Or if you can, then I do not have the skill to do it, but I don't see how anybody could do that. Like a little palm muted kind of groove, maybe. Trying to work in the, just doing the 5/8 at the top end of this chord, and the 7/8, or I'm sorry, and no, the 6/8 and the 5/8, 6/8 or 5/8. Yeah. Now, yeah, originally, as I said earlier, I was doing it with a chord progression that's really kind of like just doing power chords, like. And I'm trying to hit that string skipping, the string skipping shape there rhythmically as I would those power chords. I'm not exactly sure how to do it though, because even the power chords goes from like a G to a B flat to a C there. That's the third chord. But now, if you look at the actual string skipping shapes, the first one started with the G. But the second one, it started, even though it like tonally it's based around the C there. The first note in it is actually the B flat, so I'm a little unsure how to go about integrating the string skipping lick, highlighting that B flat and making it sound like a quick little B flat chord change there without it taking away from the C. So it'd be something kind of like that. You know, I actually do kind of like that, but I think that there's a way to change it up a little bit so it doesn't. I don't think it has to play the beginning of the C string skipping pattern and just copy the same 4 notes when it goes to the B flat and when it goes to the C. I bet that I could find a way to change that. Maybe just change 1 note when I go to the B flat in order to make it sound a little bit different. Because what I'm doing right now is it fits. I mean, all the notes sound good, but I just don't want to play the exact same thing because it's just going over a chord progression like this. You have 3 clearly defined power chords when we do it like that, but when we do it like this, we only have 2 clearly defined sort of patterns. It just the second one, it only does it kind of halfway up the first time, then it goes a little further the second time, which is kind of not exactly what I would like to do there. So there would be a way to do that differently. Maybe we can find it. Something like that, maybe? I'm just kind of starting on the bottom string again, but then I'm not skipping the 5th string there. I did like a 6, the B flat, then I went to the next string and I went 5, 8. And then I skipped the 4th string and I went up to the 3rd string, and what did I do? I think I did 5, 7. It sounds cool. It sounds fine. That's definitely not what I would, settle with. There'll be something better sounding than that. But I guess the point of this is just to show you ways that you can go about finding something that fits there. Just sticking with the same sort of thing. Just kind of like individual notes with some string skipping in there. Now that's kind of like making a riff out of it. And now stuff like this is just really great to practice just as an exercise too. If you're worried about picking, like you can just alternate pick everything. So starting with a downstroke. I went further too at one point before I started recording. Don't exactly remember where I did it though. It sounded cool. You can add that to it. That sounds cool there. But what that was is that was actually doing the same thing as here. But I went up and started it. Instead of starting it on 6 and 8, I started it up here on 9 and 11. Oh, that was cool. Well, Yeah, what that one was is I accidentally hit the second string skipping shape there, but I did it on 4 and 6 when I meant to do it on 6 and 8, so I accidentally hit the wrong chord there, but it wound up sounding cool. I would change a note in there though, maybe. Ooh, maybe like that. Actually changing the very first note that we hit in the pattern. Nah, not quite, not quite. But I mean, just kind of moving that same one around all over the place, it just sounds really good. And you can just do, you can just kind of alternate between, say, just the two shapes that I've shown so far. And then maybe like. I'm just kind of doing those randomly. I'm not following any kind of set chord changes. You'll find that if you do them in pairs like that, then it's, yeah, I mean, certain combinations are going to sound better than others. Because if you do it like that, and then, which was our first one, and then our second one was this. Now, just look at the notes we started on there. So this one started on G, B flat, and then this one went to like B flat to C. So if we take that same sort of thing and we just do each starting chord, maybe like 2 frets higher. So the first one will be like this. Then the next one will be like this. If you do it like that, you're just doing key changes basically, which is fine. I mean, you could they sound great. It's just that you're not actually doing anything different each time. You're just playing the same grouping of chords, and you're playing them starting from the same interval, like separating them by the same interval, but you're just doing that same thing in different keys. So you're doing something different, but at the same time you're not. Now, and you can just, if you just want to do more picking with that, I mean, it just makes it a great practice exercise too, because then you can start doing stuff like this. Going back to the very first one. Now this is where we start doing like kind of doubling up, doing like a staggered pattern, which it's something I really like doing. I just love staggered melodic sequences. So like, we can do it like this. Now that whole thing was just doing it like this. We're taking the same couple of notes that we start with, which was G and B flat, and the pattern goes like this. Basically, the higher of the two notes we're just looking at two notes at a time, and we have the higher of the two to the lower to the higher, and that's it. And as far, at least ascending, the ascending part of it, that's it. And we're just doing that based around the same notes that we did for that shape. So we have this. Then we have to skip a string here to our third note, skip back, skip up again, because it's doing the same thing that we did with the first two notes. Just we have to skip in order to get to the second one. It's kind of like the same thing as if you're just doing a regular pentatonic shape and you're doing it like this. You know, but we have a string skip in between, so it only has half the notes. And then we're all on our fourth string. Then we have to do another skip. Then all on the second string. If you want to do the thing just truly forwards and backwards, which I don't typically do. I find myself when I do something ascending, I do it slightly different. Descending, I don't know why that is, but that's actually probably something I need to work on, because that's probably a weakness. But it would just be a mirror image of that, basically, when you get to the top. So when we were starting from the bottom, we had higher, lower, higher, right? Higher, lower, higher. Now, you would just do the same thing going in reverse, which means that you would be doing, it's like a mirror image. So you do lower, higher, lower. Yeah, that's kind of tricky doing it like that. It seems like there's a note missing. I think that the reason why it would be like that is I think that if you add a note to the very beginning of it, kind of just like a starting note, and then we start off the pattern after that starting note, so we would get this. Yeah. Or not, I don't know. It just sounds like there's something missing in there. But that's, if you just wanted to truly do it backwards, that's what it would be. But I think what I was doing is I typically do something like this. I would start the same way, and then here I started going like the highest note down to the next lower. But then I go down to one note lower, which would be yeah, right there. And then you go back up and down two, back up, down two, back up, down two. So it's different. The sequence is different going up and going down. that was just making that one change that I talked about before, where you could do it either going back down to the second shape, which was the 6/8, 5/8, 5/8, doing 5/8, 6/8 there, as opposed to just doing 5/8, 5/8. And I was doing that sort of stagger pattern that I was just talking about, but I was just bouncing back and forth between the 5/8 and the 6/8, and I was doing it up here too. So this would be, I was doing, I believe I was on 8, 9, 10, 11. So that would be like going, like having the 8, 11, 8, 11, and having 8, 11, 9, 11 some of the time. But yeah, it's just kind of there's something cool that you can do with an easy little string skipping pattern like that. So I didn't put too much more thought into it, but that's something to play around with. I love playing around with stuff like that. It just sounds really great. That's the point of the video. It sounds good as a riff. It sounds good as just kind of like a lead, and you can make a good practice exercise out of it. So it's stuff like that I find is really versatile and really fun to play and well worth playing.